When you take 5 Irish sisters, add in some alcohol, a ton of drama, and potentially a bit of death, you get the Apple TV Plus series Bad Sisters. Now, once season 1 concluded, I didn't think the show needed to continue thanks to the story being wrapped up. But now that I've watched all of season 2, is there a worthy story here, and is it worth revisiting? 2 years after the accidental death of Grace's abusive husband, the close-knit Garvey sisters may have moved on, but when past truths resurface, the ladies are thrust back into the spotlight where suspicions are at an all-time high. Lies are told, secrets are revealed, and the sisters are forced to work out who they can trust. So this season is a bit shorter with only 8 episodes, but they're still filled with angsty drama, tons of shouting, and extremely high emotions. Now, the season picks up 2 years after season 1, so the sisters have moved on in their respective areas of their life, with Grace now having a new life adventure underway. The season opens with a very shocking and mysterious scene that leaves us hanging until the end of the season, so we get to sit with the intrigue and questions all the way through. Now, this kept me engaged and constantly making guesses as the episodes went along, so it does maintain some of the same fun of the unknown like as in the first go-round. Now, the show continues to employ the quick snark from the sisters. It's typically very funny, but it's also emotionally cannibalistic, where the barbs are usually directed from sister to sister, making it kind of mean-spirited, but then also understandable given the emotional strain that the characters are under. There's also the same type of biting dialogue that occurs between Copper Loftus and his new partner. Now, this is even more hostile, which I think is sometimes hard to endure, or at least it's annoying to listen to, but it's also used to create distaste for the inspector, and it works. And with the bickering the sisters do, I think this show is better off having the weekly releases because the verbal assaults can get to be too much over time. And having a break before rejoining them, I think it's good from a mental perspective. And for this season, in addition to Loftus's new partner, Houlihan, played by Thaddeus Graham, Fiona Shaw joins the cast and Michael Smiley gets a more prominent role. Now, Graham is timidly irritating, especially as she continuously caves to Loftus's verbal abuse. But I do like her growth that's displayed, as she just gains confidence and then begins to speak up for herself. I mean, she's got some awkward comedy too, and it works to add some cringe as well as some softness in certain moments. Now, Fiona Shaw is a character that I absolutely loved to abhor for the majority of the season. She's taking her role as Mrs. Dursley and adding in a bit of umbrage for good measure. But in the genius of her acting, she's able to take a character who is catty, conniving, and overly nosy, and then make her become a sympathetic one who I may have started to root for a bit. The writing, it also gets kudos for just giving the character this arc, but Shaw creates such a visceral response that it's wonderful to watch her command the screen and steal the scenes. Now, going back to the banter of the sisters, for as nasty as they can be to each other, there's also this fierceness that's displayed that creates a very convincing tight-knit team. Now, each of the actors, Sharon Horgan, Sarah Green, Anne-Marie Duff, Eve Hewson, and Eva Berthasol, all bring unique strengths and characteristics to the story. Green is all action with very little patience, typically rushing into something that can create more issues or cause laughs. And because she has such a dry delivery, she is wonderful in her sarcasm. Now, Berthasol is continuously flabbergasted and on the verge of a breakdown, but she's also the one who will begrudgingly do some of the more undesirable tasks. And she's very sympathetic, but also works against herself at times by creating some of her own issues, which then makes for intriguing drama. Now, Hewson is still the wild card, being the youngest of the 5. I mean, she brings impulsivity, but also the charm of naivete. Now, I love that the sisters continuously discount her because of her brashness, which I think is deserved a lot of the time. But she does have value and has this just huge unjaded heart, and that makes her endearing in the show. Now, for me, Duff is the hardest to connect with, and I think a lot of that just comes from the mousy and whiny behavior of her character. The acting, I thought, was wonderful, and I constantly vacillate between sympathizing with her and loathing her. But she's also, again, very pivotal to this season, so her inclusion, it's an absolute must. And then finally with Horgan, she's pretty much constantly dumbfounded and annoyed at the craziness of situations. She comes across as a mother hen to the rest, which then leads to her being utterly appalled when they do something stupid. And thanks to her very quick wit and the comedic timing, she can take a stressful situation and have the dialogue just leave us in tears from laughter. Now, the ensemble works well together, but the story, it also isn't afraid to break up the grouping and have us follow smaller side stories with one or two of the other sisters. And I love that the central plot doesn't ever get lost in that shuffle or just left to the sidelines. Everything we watch is working towards the finale. But smartly, the show also does throw in some curveballs to keep us on our toes and then throw us off the scent. Now, truthfully, it was a bit difficult to hop back into the show. And it's not because I was hating on any of the characters, I just felt like I was playing a bit of catch-up, trying to remember all of the dynamics and relationships. I wasn't interested in revisiting the same story or problems. If I'm going to come back to this odd mix of family, I wanted to be led in a completely different direction. I think because of an early plot complication, the story did feel like it was going to retread on the storylines that we'd already dealt with. Thankfully, though, that's not really the case. Even though it does appear so at the very start. Some elements, they do come back up, but this also builds on the first season instead of copying it. Now, there's a lot of melancholy mixed with sarcastic humor, not always leaving a huge smile on the face, but certainly leaving us pondering the questions that's raised by each episode. I enjoyed this season and the mystery it contained, but I also hope that this is the final season because while the sisters are fun, they're also a lot, and there can be too much of a good thing. So overall, Bad Sisters returns for Season 2 with biting and snarky dialogue and twisty intrigue that charges forward with smarts and wit. While the emotional roller coaster can be too much at times, the performances are outstanding, each bringing dimension and varied dynamics that keep the characters from becoming lifeless and flat. Fiona Shaw is a standout with a character arc that can simultaneously be vile and charming, showcasing her strength as an actor to craft such a conflicting persona. And while I was hesitant at the start that this would rehash a lot of the elements of Season 1, the story builds a brand new arc, supported by the past, but standing on its own with new complications and surprises. There's a little sex, very brief nudity, if any, a ton of profanity, and then some violence. I give Season 2 of Bad Sisters 4 out of 5 couches. So are you a fan of this show? You're watching a review of Season 2, so you probably kind of like Season 1, maybe? I don't know. But who's your favorite character? Maybe just your favorite sister? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.